space, and I'm wondering when and how your relationship with the engine room started.
Right, so I'm a lecturer in the School of Art, Puke Ahu, here at Massey University, and one of my roles, along with teaching and doing research, is to kind of manage the gallery space. You know, so it's a very small, it's quite a small role because the space is small, but
very awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about the engine room that is kind of distinctive in the sort of galleries of Wellington?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's two things. One is that it's got this great space, which is, it used to be there's a pit there, and it used to be part of the School of Engineering, and they'd drive cars in here and inspect them in order for students to learn how to do that, whatever car mechanics do. So of course they needed lots of natural light. So that's why it's called the engine room, because it's got that history.
Oh, that
and
is so
when
great.
we took over this space, because they were closing that program, we built this.
And how long has the gallery been here?
I think it's probably 16 or so years since the school started and the fine arts program. So.
And what does it mean to sort of have a gallery in amongst, like, Coker's here?
Yeah.
What do you think it brings to the gallery?
Well, the sort of mandate of the gallery as it's running at the moment is to do projects, sort of staff and student projects. So if staff have got research and they want to present art or curate an exhibition, that's part of it. And then we get sort of external artists coming in onto the campus. So it's an opportunity for us to kind of present what we do out to the world, but also for students and staff to see, you know, particular things that come in here. You know, like for example, this show is sort of 2 recent graduates, so it's part of the kind of alumni program. We're trying to get our students coming back and showing us what they've been doing in the meantime. So,
It's just fantastic, because this feels like a particular hub, this area. Like you've got Coker. Could you explain a little bit about Coker, maybe?
Well, Coker is the College of Creative Arts within Massey University, and within Coker there's 3 schools. So there's the contemporary media production, which is music and animation and things like that, and then there's the School of Design, which is the huge behemoth of an institution, and it's kind of been going for years and it's magnificent. And then there's the School of Art, which is kind of the smallest of the 3, and this is part of the School of Art. So in the School of Art we do kind of contemporary art and contemporary Māori art and visual kind of culture and photography.
And do you think that, to me, it sounds very interesting to sort of have design and some of the other courses that are here with fine arts. Do you think that does do something to the culture of the place?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think because design is so strong, we've always had this sort of weird relationship where, you know, we like to feel we're leading design and, you know, being all that rubbish, but at the same time, design is such a strong influence. It's kind of really interesting for us to work next to designers and the students to work next to designers, and that it does make a sort of slightly crossover kind of a cross-disciplinary thing happening. It doesn't tend to happen in here so much because this is School of Arts project space, so it tends to be fine art stuff. But for example, at the beginning of last year, we had one of the lecturers in the creative media production. He did a big sound installation, for example, which was pretty cool. It's this huge set of speakers over there. You sat on a couch down here and listen to that. And yeah, so we're starting to get a bit more crossover happening because it makes sense.
It sounds really exciting. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the work that's in here at the moment. Like, as you said, Sabina and you know, the alumni. Can you talk a little bit about how this project started? Like, the relationship between the two.
I mean, I taught both of them various moments through their degree, and when they were graduating, Sabina came to me and said they'd like to have a show. And I was like, really? Why do you want to come back this soon? You know, because they'd only been out 2 years at that point. But they were quite determined, and I think it's worked in the sense that it's really cool to have, you know, people coming back to show us what they do, and it's a really funky show. And I walked through here yesterday when it was all up and went, it's great to have art that's about something, because they're very, you know, determined in their, you know, what they're making their art about, which you'll see in a minute.
It's just such a great thing to have in the area, and it's just wonderful. Thanks so much, Richard.
Pleasure.
It was awesome. Cheers. are awesome and the show is amazing. And I was wondering if we could maybe begin by you just explaining a little bit about the work that is in the show and maybe the show itself.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to start off with?
Sure, yeah. So I've made a series of paintings. They are as a sort of a take on documentative photographs that have been collected all over the world, looking at the gait of a cow that is in various stages of lameness. And I just loved how they are so unusual, taken with like very little skill, just with like a little sort of digital camera, but they're just these really visceral images, and I thought it would be a fun thing to paint them and sort of give glory back to the cow that didn't give consent for the photograph to be taken or distributed in this book that's now available all over the world. And I suppose consent is something that runs through a lot of the work in the show, especially with the video. I think that's a really important thing to talk about with that. There's a work that I haven't exhibited before, but I painted some years ago, and looking at the materials used in the collection of semen, which is then used in the artificial insemination process, which is all very problematic and scary. But I guess a lot of it's just taking the image out of its original context, which is a bit of a refreshing look at how unusual it actually is, and maybe outside of the sort of scientific element of everything, it just looks really pervy and weird, and that's kind of what I'm going for, yeah.
Yeah, and how does your work sort of talk to those ideas?
Well, so I guess I wanted to make some works where people had to, I guess, like physically engage with the work and sort of put themselves in the shoes of a cow, the hooves of a cow, and then look at Sian's work, which is obviously like very like gnarly,
That's definitely
and
a good word,
you know, like and just try and engage with it in a slightly different way, because rather than just looking at an object, you're also kind of like in the artwork itself. And so I made these udders, which so they're like quite big and like weighted, and I want people to wear them as they look at the show and sort of think about, like, I guess, like, feel themselves wearing the weight of the udder while looking at what the existence of a cow is actually like.
Yeah, it's really great to get that. I don't know, like the show itself is just magnificent, the way that it's sort of coming at these really interesting ideas in more than one way. And I wonder, there's something very special about this space, and I wonder, I understand that the show was kind of designed for this gallery. Could you talk a little bit about what you think makes this space distinct, and why you wanted to exhibit this work here?
Absolutely. I mean, we were lucky enough to secure the space before a lot of the work was actually made, but we were taken with the engine room because it's got that sort of separated element, and we thought it would be beautiful to have all the udders in that first initial space and a partition that you have to, so it's sort of breaking up the real world and the cow world, and you have to really immerse yourself like in the space. And we love the fact that it's got all of this beautiful natural light. We thought potentially that might be a problem with the video works, but it seems to be just fine.
It works really well.
And I think it's so nice that we were able to like have a partition in the space, and that when people have like entered through, people on this, like it's sort of, you're in a costume, you're looking at quite gnarly art, and you're just like in this like private sort of realm where it's just like you kind of like thinking about things in a different context than you might normally. And you just have that experience because there's the, like the separation.
Thank you both so much, and thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful show.
Oh, no, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.